Hello everyone, I welcome all of you to my lecture sessions on biochemistry for pharmacy students. So in this session we will discuss in detail regarding bile pigment synthesis and related disorders like hyperbilirubinemia and jaundice. Okay, so heme ring, its biosynthesis etc. we have seen in the last class. Heme ring is a very important chemical constituent in our body because it is a part of our oxygen transport because it is there in the hemoglobin, and then electron transport chain, the proteins involved in electron transport chain, and it is a very important cofactor in several oxidoreductase enzymes. Okay, so that's the reason why heme ring biosynthesis as well as metabolism is tightly regulated, and it is of very high biological significance. Okay, so in this lecture session we'll see how actually the heme ring is metabolized. As this is actually a colored compound, the metabolites obtained from heme ring are also colored, so that's the reason why we call them as bile pigments. The metabolized products are actually excreted through bile only, so that's the reason why we call them as bile pigments. Okay, so let's move ahead. So bilirubin is one very important metabolite that we obtain in the metabolism of heme ring. So that's the reason why we consider bilirubin as bilirubin metabolism as synonymous with bile pigment formation. Okay, so in bilirubin metabolism there are 6 very important stages are there. So one is its formation, bilirubin biosynthesis, and then the second stage transport of bilirubin in plasma, and the third one hepatocellular uptake, storage and transport, and then conjugation in the endoplasmic reticulum, and then biliary secretion of ester conjugates, and then intestinal transport and elimination. So in these 6 stages we will see how actually the bile pigments are chemically transformed, and then later we will see its biological significance. Okay, so this is only an outline so that you get some brief idea on it. Now let's see how actually it is happening. Metabolism of heme and formation of bile pigments. So it all starts with red blood cells, because as you all knew, red blood cells have a lifespan of approximately 120 days. Okay, so 120 days. So after 120 days what happens to RBC? The senescent cells, they will enter into spleen, and in the spleen the RBC will be shredded, and then the cellular materials like carbohydrates, lipids, proteins etc., they all will be sent to respective metabolic pathways. But here RBC carry a special molecule, we call it as hemoglobin. So hemoglobin means heme is a non-protein part and globin is nothing but a protein. So both will be separated. So globin will enter into protein metabolism and heme ring will be separated. Now the heme ring contains porphyrin ring, and in the middle you will have iron. So the oxidative degradation of heme ring cut open the tetrapyrrole unit over here, so that a linear tetrapyrrole unit, we call it as biliverdin, is going to be biosynthesized, and here we have iron. So this iron will enter into iron pool. Now the biliverdin will be reduced to an orange red compound, we call it as bilirubin. Okay, bilirubin. So this is a very important molecule. So upon reduction we are getting bilirubin. So bilirubin is a relatively non-polar molecule, so that has to be now transported to liver. So everything is happening within spleen right now. Now the bilirubin is released into blood, where bilirubin will be bound to plasma proteins. So the same way as the way how fatty acids are transported in blood, okay, and non-polar molecules are transported in blood. So in the same way bilirubin will also be bound to plasma proteins, so that it will be transported to hepatic cells. And in the liver, the bound plasma protein bound bilirubin will be recognized, and then it will be taken up, and then here the plasma protein will be separated and it will lead to the further activities. Okay, the plasma protein is separated and albumin will enter into protein pool. The bilirubin will enter into hepatocyte, and within hepatocyte now the actual biosynthetic pathway happens. Okay, so because bilirubin is highly non-polar in nature, so to increase its elimination rate, it has to be converted into highly polar molecule. So that's the reason why here the bilirubin molecule will be attached to two glucuronic acid units. Okay, so two glucuronic acid units. Glucuronic acid is nothing but oxidized glucose molecules only. Glucose is an aldose. Okay, so that aldehyde group will be converted to carboxylic acid. So that molecule will be esterified onto bilirubin. Okay, so that's the reason why it adds a lot of polarity, and now it is easy for bilirubin to be excreted. Once the conjugation is over, the conjugated bilirubin will now enter into gallbladder. Okay, so gallbladder contains so many other chemicals, and bile juices contain so many enzymes, etc. So here in gallbladder you will see the diglucuronide will be stored over here, and then the material will be released into duodenum, and then it enters into the large small intestine. Okay, gastrointestinal tract. So this is the way how first the formation is happening, bilirubin formation, and then its transportation. This is the first stage, and transportation is happening, and then within liver the recognition as well as separation of bilirubin and then albumin is happening, and then in the fourth stage the liver is actually able to convert bilirubin to diglucuronide, and then it is stored in gallbladder, and then it is released into the gastrointestinal tract, that is intestine. Okay, so once upon entry of the diglucuronide into the intestinal tract, what happens, the first thing is hydrolysis happens, so that bilirubin will be released and then the glucuronic acid units will be cut off. So once it enters into intestinal region is enriched with so much of microbial flora. So the microbial flora will further chemically modify bilirubin to obtain urobilinogen. Urobilinogen is actually a colorless compound, and now what happens is something interesting happens over here. So bilirubin is converted to urobilinogen. So the urobilinogen then, because it enters into large intestine, and at this juncture you will have a specific absorption mechanism, we call it as enterohepatic circulation. So through enterohepatic circulation the urobilinogen will be again reabsorbed and it enters into liver, and within liver it will be chemically transformed into urobilin. Okay, we call this compound as urobilin. Okay, so this urobilin will be excreted exclusively through kidneys. Okay, through urine. Okay, so this is a slightly yellowish in color, so that's the reason why urine is usually slightly yellowish in color or straw colored. Okay, so this is the way how. And whatever urobilinogen that is remaining over here, that enters into large intestine and it travels through that and it will be converted further. So thereby you get a compound, specific compound, we call it as stercobilin. Stercobilin is brownish in color, and that stercobilin will enter into the waste materials that are the food remnants that we have in the collected in the large intestine, and will be excreted via feces. Okay, so this is the sixth phase. Okay, so friends, this is the way how heme metabolism gives us several different types of bile pigment molecules, including biliverdin, bilirubin, and then bilirubin diglucuronide, urobilinogen, urobilin, and stercobilin. Okay, so friends, I hope you got the concept here, and now we will see in detail the chemistry as well as its regulation. Okay, so let's move ahead. So this is heme ring, or we also call it as ferroprotoporphyrin 9. Okay, so here in the last class, while discussing about the biosynthesis of heme, we have seen, okay, so 1 2 3, these 3 rings are in uniform distribution of substitutions will be there, and here we have the no, asymmetry. Okay, so methyl vinyl, methyl vinyl, methyl propyl, and here propyl methyl. Okay, so that's the reason why this is the D ring. Where exactly the change happens, that is D ring, and this is A ring, B ring, C ring. Okay, so the connection between A and B, this methane, so this is alpha position, this is beta position, gamma position, and delta position. Okay, so this is the way how we can designate the placements, so that we can easily understand how actually the degradation is happening. So now the heme will be oxidatively degraded with the help of an enzyme, we call it as heme oxygenase. See, don't confuse with the spelling, okay, HAEM and HEME, both are the same. Heme oxygenase, so which takes as a cofactor NADPH, so thereby it oxidizes heme ring, and then it synthesizes biliverdin, a greenish colored chemical. So here it consumes 3 carbon dioxides, and 1 carbon over here, which is supposed to be at the alpha position, that gets degraded so that it is converted to carbon monoxide and it is eliminated. And at this position only, iron over here is also eliminated as ferric ion. So this will enter into the iron pool. Okay, so here if you see the heme oxygenases, whatever we have over here, we have 2 types of heme oxygenases are there: heme oxygenase 1 and heme oxygenase 2. Heme oxygenase 1 is highly distributed throughout the heme oxygenase is predominant in our system, and here you can have this in liver as well as Kupffer cells in the spleen. Okay, reticuloendothelial cells in spleen. And heme oxygenase 2 you will find in brain and testis. Okay, so more than 90% the enzyme you will find in heme oxygenase 1, and then in that more than 85% of heme oxygenase 1 you will find in spleen, and 15% you will find in liver. Okay, so friends, this is the way how the heme oxygenase distribution is there in our body. The biliverdin that we got over here gets reduced by the enzyme biliverdin reductase, which makes use of either NADPH or NADH as coenzyme depending upon the pH of the environment, and ultimately it gives us bilirubin, a very important intermediate. So here if you closely observe the structure, so at the alpha position the first degradation is happening, and then the ring is reduced at the opposite side, okay, at the gamma position, okay, please remember this one. And here this is what breaks the conjugation, and this may be the reason why the color is changing from green to red. Okay, so now bilirubin has some biological significance. So here you can see 1 carboxylic acid unit here and 1 carboxylic acid unit here, and here we have polar functional groups, here also polar functional groups are there, but still bilirubin is highly lipophilic in nature. So the reason is over here. Okay, so this is the natural 3-dimensional structure of bilirubin, where the alignment is in such a manner that the carboxylic acid unit forms a tight hydrogen bonds with the polar functional groups we have on the pyrrole rings. Okay, so in this kind of arrangement you will not see any exposure of the polar groups to outside environment. So for the outside environment, whatever that we can approach, the molecule, entire molecule is totally lipophilic in nature. The polar functional groups are buried inside. So that's the reason why bilirubin is highly lipophilic. So bilirubin, because of its lipophilicity, that creates problems. The highly lipophilic bilirubin can enter easily into lipophilic lipid rich tissues like brain and adipose tissue. Okay, so that's the reason why in case of infants, especially the babies born of premature delivery, in those cases it's quite often it is observed that they will suffer from the mild jaundice kind of symptoms. The hepatic metabolic system is not yet ready, so that's the reason why. So hence what happens is the doctors, they suggest phototherapy where the baby will be exposed to blue light. The science over here is in blue light, because we have so many double bonds over here, so the double bond over here we have over here at the 15th position, so that gets transformed from Z conformation to E conformation, means cis to trans. Okay, so because of this transformation, the functional groups over here are moving away from the carboxylic acid units, so thereby these two polar functional groups are exposed to the environment as well as this OH group. So this will make lumirubin that is formed in this transformation as relatively more polar than bilirubin, so that slowly lumirubin will be eliminated from the body. Okay, so in that way bilirubin can be eliminated from our body by using phototherapy. Okay, so friends, this is the way how it is happening. So let's move ahead and then see what happens to bilirubin. So where are we right now? We are still in spleen. The bilirubin is supposed to be sent to liver. So how it is sent? Because bilirubin is highly lipophilic in nature, so it will first be bound to protein, plasma protein, and the plasma protein bound bilirubin will be recognized by the liver cells, and then bilirubin will be segregated into hepatocytes. Okay, so within hepatocyte what is happening? Bilirubin will be chemically transformed by using UDP glucuronosyl transferase. So this is the enzyme we have which will attach two glucuronic acid units to bilirubin. So in bilirubin, as you can see, two propanoic acid units will be there. So this carboxylic acid unit will be esterified onto the hydroxy group we have at the C1 position. So that because of addition of this highly polar functional groups over here as well as here, bilirubin diglucuronide will be water soluble, will become water soluble. Okay, so in this way, in case of liver, bilirubin will be conjugated. Okay, so this diglucuronide is what we call it as conjugated form of bilirubin. Okay, so in spleen what is it that we got? Is unconjugated form of bilirubin. Okay, so friends, this is the way how bilirubin diglucuronide is formed. It will be sent out of the liver and it will enter into bile juices, so that it will be stored in the gallbladder, and then while taking food, okay, so when bile juice is released into gastrointestinal tract, that is into small intestine via duodenum, then along with all the enzymes etc., other chemicals, bile pigments will also be released into the gastrointestinal tract. Okay, so what happens then? What is it that we have? Bilirubin diglucuronide enters into small intestine where it will be hydrolyzed, so that bilirubin will be regenerated. Bilirubin will be regenerated. Now here to reduce the clutter, I am representing the functional groups as M is methyl, V is vinyl, M is methyl, P is propanoic acid, P is propanoic acid. Okay, so this is the way how. Now what happens? Bilirubin will be reduced by microbial enzymes, because in the small intestine as well as in large intestine, so much of microbial flora will be there. They help us in achieving so many biochemical conversions. Okay, so this takes in the bilirubin and reduces bilirubin to urobilinogen. So how many hydrogens are consumed? 8 hydrogen, 8 H units are consumed. And then here the vinyl group over here, we have vinyl group here, means this is vinyl group, so that is converted to ethyl group, CH2 CH3. Okay, so that is what is happening over here. And then this double bond is reduced, this double bond is also reduced, and this vinyl group is also converted to ethyl group. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, total 8 hydrogens are needed. So this urobilinogen will have two destinations. Urobilinogen now from small intestine to large intestine, first 1/3 of the large intestine. So there we have specific absorption mechanism will be there, so which takes in some of the useful chemicals like bile salts, etc., and then they will be taken directly into liver. So this is what we call it as enterohepatic circulation. Through enterohepatic circulation, urobilinogen will be again sent to liver. There urobilinogen will be converted to urobilin. Okay, so this is urobilin. So that will be released into blood and it will be eliminated via kidneys. Okay, so here what is happening? Oxidation is happening so that urobilin is generated. This is slightly yellowish in color. And the remaining bilinogen will move further and then it will be again reduced further. So thereby urobilinogen will be converted to a brownish colored chemical. We call it as stercobilin. Okay, it all happens in large intestine. So this stercobilin, if you see the differences, what is happening over here, in the first instance, what is happening, the B and A rings are chemically transformed. So the B and A rings are having the vinyl group and then double bonds, all of them are reduced. So that is finished then. And then what is happening, the D ring is chemically transformed so that one extra double bond is happening over here and the double bonds inside D ring are rearranged. So that extended conjugation you can see over here. So to this pyrrole as well as this pyrrole, both are conjugated here. So that is what is giving slight yellowish in color. And in case of urobilinogen to stercobilin, what is happening? So here also extended conjugation is happening and then the D ring is actually changing over here. Okay, but here the double bonds that we have in A ring and B ring are also reduced. Okay, so this is the way how chemical transformations are happening. So friends, this is the way how bile pigments that are generated in spleen are sequentially degraded so that ultimately stercobilin and urobilin are eliminated from our body. Okay, so I hope you got the concept here. Now, so see how actually the bile pigment level in our body reflects health or disease condition. So normally, as I told you, bilirubin level is considered as a diagnostic parameter to monitor the heme metabolism. Okay, so here bilirubin level is what actually we can monitor. So as I told you, bilirubin exists in two forms. One is bilirubin and then conjugated bilirubin. Okay, so bilirubin and conjugated bilirubin levels are very important diagnostic parameters. Okay, normally total bilirubin level means unconjugated as well as conjugated together, the level varies between 0.2 to 1 milligram per deciliter, whereas in that unconjugated and conjugated, if you see conjugated 0.1 to 0.4 milligram per deciliter it can be there, and unconjugated 0.2 to 0.9 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so if the levels are in this range, we can consider that heme metabolism is happening in a normal pattern and everything is normal inside our system. But sometimes what happens is bilirubin levels will increase if they go beyond 1 milligram per deciliter. So that is what actually we call it as hyperbilirubinemia. So the condition is getting precipitated and we can see clinical manifestations once the bilirubin level goes beyond 2 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so here what we can say that jaundice conditions are going to be clearly observed once the bilirubin level goes beyond 2 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so here the problem with bilirubin is unconjugated bilirubin, especially because it is highly lipophilic in nature, so it can cross blood-brain barrier and can cause brain damage, because as I told you, because earlier also I told you that bilirubin, it contains extended conjugation, it is photoactive, as well as it has this intrinsic capability to undergo oxidation reduction reactions. So when it is undergoing oxidation reduction reactions, bilirubin will undergo chemical reactions so that it releases oxygen free radicals. So these oxygen free radicals will create oxidative damage. Okay, so this is one common mechanism via which the tetrapyrrole units can cause toxicity within tissues. Okay, because bilirubin is lipophilic, so it is segregated more and more into more and more into brain, so thereby brain damage is going to happen. Okay, so to avoid that one, I have shown you in the previous slides that phototherapy is suggested, so that bilirubin will be converted to lumirubin, and then in that way it can be eliminated. Okay, so in our system, hyperbilirubinemias can be segregated into three types, that is prehepatic conditions, prehepatic, hepatic and posthepatic bilirubinemias. In case of prehepatic, what can happen, because before liver, what is the tissue that is actually producing bilirubin? It is spleen. Within spleen, it is RBC, because when more and more RBCs are getting degraded, then what happens, more and more heme ring will be degraded, so that relatively more bilirubin will be generated. So in that condition, excessive increased degradation of erythrocytes, okay, maybe because of anemias, specific blood cancer kind of conditions, so there it is observed that excessive degradation of erythrocytes can be there. And the second reason is, in some infections and toxic chemical exposure also can initiate stressful conditions that leads to sacrifice of erythrocytes, okay, increased rate of degradation of erythrocytes. So this is observed in viral infections, etc. So that could be one reason why prehepatic hyperbilirubinemias can happen. And the second condition is hepatic, means within liver, what is happening? Within liver, liver is supposed to convert bilirubin to bilirubin diglucuronide. So that is actually the synthetic capability of liver when it is compromised because of hepatitis, means viral infection, or cirrhosis, or hepatic failure. So these are three common reasons why the hepatic hyperbilirubinemias can happen. So one more reason is Gilbert syndrome. So in Gilbert syndrome, so here what happens is the enzyme that is needed for conjugation of glucuronic acids to bilirubin are missing. So that's the reason why hepatic bilirubinemia can happen due to this one. Okay, the third one is post hepatic. So spleen is working fine and liver is also working fine, but what is happening is after liver is supposed to release the diconjugated bilirubin into the bile juices. Okay, so the chemicals that are released will be stored in gallbladder. So from gallbladder it is supposed to be released into duodenum, through duodenum to small intestine. So here what can happen, the bile juices, they are supposed to be released when there is inflammation to biliary tract, or because of some physical problem like gallstones when they are formed, that leads to obstructive jaundice. Okay, so because of blockade, bile juices are stagnant within, they remain within gallbladder, so that leads to jaundice conditions. Okay, so these are the reasons why hyperbilirubinemia happens. Okay, so regarding clinical studies, etc., I made a separate video where the biochemical tests that are needed and its clinical significance is what I have explained in those lectures. Okay, so friends, I hope you understood the concept of heme ring metabolism and bile pigment formation and their clinical significance. Okay, so I hope you understood the concept here, and I request you to please share this video with your friends and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll meet you again with another very interesting lecture soon. Okay, Thank you.